thank you so much for joining us on the Discover Fort Smith podcast. For those of you who may not know, this is Madison Marsh, Miss America 2024, Second Lieutenant Madison Marsh, and we're so glad that you're here with us today. We just wanted to know a little bit about your story, and we know that you've got some exciting things happening in Fort Smith, and we wanted to share about those things.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your Fort Smith story. Like, you grew up here, you went to school here.
Yeah, so I was born and raised right here in Fort Smith, Arkansas my whole life. So I went to Immaculate Conception for elementary school. I went to Trinity Junior High for middle school. And then for high school, I went to Southside and then ended up moving out of town to the Air Force Academy in Colorado after I graduated from Southside back in 2019. But I'm lucky I got to stay in the same house and get to be around all my friends for my entire childhood. That's awesome.
Well, so whenever you come back to Fort Smith, what are some of those places like you've got to visit while you're here?
La Huerta and Blue Ember.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, those are my two hot spots, and I've already eaten there on my trip home this week. So.
Awesome.
That's great.
Awesome.
So I'm just curious to know, how do you feel Fort Smith has kind of influenced your life in the direction that your life has taken?
Yeah.
I think the community here really speaks for itself. My fiance is from Connecticut, and every single time that he comes to visit Fort Smith and he's gone to school visits with me, he just says that the environment that we create for kids here is just so different from anything that he's seen. Like the nurturing that the teachers provide, how close the teachers get to the students. I mean, all of that and the love and the care that's in the classroom, I think really just goes a lot beyond what you learn in school. And I think that's really, really special because it's not all about the education in the books, but it's also about the interpersonal connection that you get to create with people and learning that from a young age. And so community is obviously a very, very important and vital part of our town in Fort Smith. And I think that's definitely carried with me no matter where I go, is that importance of unifying people together and really showing up for one another when people are in need.
Yeah, that's really one of the themes of our podcast has been the community here in Fort Smith. And so how did that community kind of shape who you've become as Miss America? And you've still got a lot of life ahead of you, but how you've grown as a person, how you became Miss America, how your decision to join the Air Force, like how did all of the Fort Smith community, how did that shape that journey towards that?
I would say a big part of it was my parents. Just getting to have them as the two people that I really, truly got to look up to obviously shaped a lot. My mom grew up in Fort Smith her whole life as well, and so she was a really dedicated volunteer here, was really connected in a lot of different athletic groups, and I think that was really cool to get to see. Even though Fort Smith might be a smaller town, the family's big.
Yeah.
And I really love that here. And I think we saw that happen after my mom passed away from pancreatic cancer in 2018. The entire time that she was going through treatment, people that I don't even remember to this day would show up to our house and would bring us fully cooked meals.
Wow.
I mean, the entire community of Fort Smith really banded together for us. And then on our inaugural Whitney's race, we had over 900 people come and run. That was a record-breaking race for Fort Smith. And I think that's really phenomenal of the amount of people that I didn't even know that knew my mom and still came out and still come out now on our 6th year and 5th race. I mean, that's pretty incredible. So that's why I love to get to come back to Arkansas and why I definitely want to move my family back here later on.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about your mom and Whitney's race.
Yeah.
And can you just talk about your foundation and how its inception, how it came to be, and what it's trying to accomplish?
Absolutely. So my mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer at the age of 41. Pancreatic cancer is the number 3 cause of cancer-related deaths in the United States. And it receives basically minimal funding, scraps and leftovers, as we like to call it, compared to the other top 5 cancer killers. And my mom, unfortunately, was in that group, even though she didn't have any of those, the risk factors that you might consider. She was very healthy. She was young, didn't ever use tobacco products, really didn't drink a lot, and worked out a ton, didn't have a cancer history in our family. So all of those factors point to cancer not being a problem, but it still ended up being a problem, even though my mom did every single lifestyle choice she could have to prevent that. And she ended up having some random pains, like random abdominal pain, random back pain. Some other symptoms could be changes in stool or unexpected weight loss. Those are all things for pancreatic cancer. And my mom was misdiagnosed for a while, and then we ended up finally figuring out that's what she had. And then after she passed away in 2018, we decided we wanted to do something that really represented who she was as a person and not what cancer made her. Yeah. And a big part of her journey was running. Even while she was going through chemotherapy, my mom was still getting up and running. You can ask anybody that lives in our neighborhood. They still know to this day, Whitney Marsh was the runner in the neighborhood. She had the blonde ponytail up, ran every single morning, and never missed a beat. So the Whitney Marsh Foundation, the way that we primarily raise our money is by hosting Whitney's Race. Because one, it's bringing people together to run, which is something that my mom loved. 2, we're educating the community around pancreatic cancer. And 3, we're promoting those healthy lifestyle choices to get people to get up and exercise their bodies as a community, to bring people together in times that we really need it. And I can assure you that we definitely need it for pancreatic cancer. So the way that we use that money is now we're giving 100% of those funds back to Arkansas. My mom was able to go get treatment at MD Anderson, but we recognize that not a lot of Arkansans are going to have that same financial capability to go somewhere else to get treatment. So we want to bring all of those resources from the Mecca hospitals all around the United States right home to Arkansas. So people can be treated in Fort Smith. They can be treated up at UAMS. We can bring all of those wonderful things and the physicians and the research dollars to our patients who desperately need it here in Arkansas, because that affects everybody. And I don't think it's just for pancreatic cancer. When we start to give funds in those areas, we're also attracting better resources for numerous other cancers. And that's really what we're striving to achieve at the Whitney Marsh Foundation.
Right. So why do you think it is that you said the scraps and the leftovers are kind of pushed to pancreatic cancer research or treatment? Why is that, do you think?
Well, we have lower incident rates, meaning that we affect less people. So less people are getting diagnosed with it, even though many, many more of them are dying from it.
Yeah.
So if you think of some of the main cancers, like maybe breast cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer does have a higher survival rate now. Even though it's affecting more people, it is killing less people. Whereas for pancreatic cancer, I think it's like maybe around 60,000 people a year get diagnosed. And the survival rate right now for 5 years is 12%.
Wow.
It is one of the lowest survival rates for cancers. And so when we look at issues like that, sometimes when we go to Congress and we try to talk to them, it does make it difficult to get people to see eye to eye with what we're trying to push, because pancreatic cancer is one of those extremely difficult cancers to solve. But I think if you crack the code on the hardest thing, you're opening up so many doors for other cancers too. And breast cancer should be a representative to us of how we go about creating that change. Pancreatic cancer, research-wise, is where breast cancer was 4 decades ago.
Wow.
We should be looking to them on how in the world were they able to create all this amazing political change, all these amazing new policies and funding and awareness. We need to be using their framework to create that same change for pancreatic cancer and so many others, because we need it. And they have been a shining example of what can be accomplished. So it makes me really hopeful, because I'm sure if you were to ask breast cancer patients 4 decades ago and the physicians, if they would have ever been able to imagine a future that they get to have now, they probably would have said, no, there's no way that's possible. That's how we feel with pancreatic cancer right now. But I'm hopeful that if we band together, if we really, really look deeply at the issues and we're able to pour in more money, we too can become more like the breast cancer community in that way.
Wow.
So maybe somebody can't come to the race itself, but they can probably donate, right? How can they do that?
So if you go on whitneysrace.org, WHITNEYSRACE.org, we have all the information there. You can donate on there. If you are a business, you can become a sponsor. Or for next year, we always host basically a festival afterwards where small businesses can come and set up shop and sell all of their products. And we'll bring in all the runners, we'll bring in the business, and you just supply, and we can ensure that people are going to come and recognize your business so we can connect people a little bit more. And then there's also a lot of phenomenal resources on there. If you want to go look up those risk factors, those warning signs, we're hoping within the next year we're going to be able to create a contact list for all of the physicians around the country that we've interviewed. So you can go and read up on the interviews that we've done with them and maybe get in contact with them if you're needing help for pancreatic cancer.
Wow,
that's awesome.
Really incredible.
Yeah. So how did you... So, I looked up your bio a little bit before we started this, and I was seeing, you've got a black belt in Taekwondo.
Yeah.
You were a pilot at 17, is that right? You became a pilot at 17 in the Air Force. You've just achieved so much. Like, you've got so much tenacity. You've done a lot. How do you juggle all of that stuff? Miss America. Sorry, I forgot about that. How do you juggle all that stuff?
One, I heavily rely on my family and my loved ones because you can go fast if you go alone, but you're never going to go far.
Yeah.
If you go together with people, that's how you're going to go far in life. And I had to recognize that early on because I can't do everything. You can't win everything on your own. And I know that I would have achieved nothing without the people that were beside me. I never would have gotten into the Air Force Academy without my teachers that were the ones writing those recommendation letters, preparing me for college, or without my family members giving me the opportunity to go out and do things like fly planes and succeed in weird ways before I got there. And I know from the Air Force Academy, I never would have been able to become a Truman Scholar or go to Harvard without their help and their mentorship every single day. So it starts by really leaning on other people because you're never going to get through things alone. You never achieve anything alone. I would have achieved nothing without the people beside me.
That's awesome.
So I'm just curious. Have you always wanted to be in the Air Force? Like, did you always want to be Miss America? These long-term goals that you had, what pushed you in this direction?
Yeah. So I didn't always want to be in the Air Force. I grew up, I would always love science. So I wanted to be a paleontologist, a marine biologist. I wanted to live in the forest and study gorillas, just a bunch of really random things. Yeah. And it wasn't until the 8th grade when I was like, I really want to be a marine biologist. So my parents sent me on a marine biology camp. And there I started to listen to people that had gone to places like space camp, and I had gotten to see the stars without any light pollution for the first time. And so I started to think, maybe that's what I want to do over studying marine biology. So I went to space camp. I started hearing a lot more about how do you become an astronaut. And so I kept hearing over and over and over again, becoming a pilot for the Air Force, a test pilot, or just military. So that's what initially got me interested. But over the past couple of years, I've kind of changed gears and I no longer want to be an astronaut, but I still get to serve in the Air Force because the wonderful thing about the military is that there are so many different jobs outside of flying planes. Yeah. I think everyone has this conception about the Air Force that everyone that puts on the uniform is a pilot. I don't fly for the Air Force, but there are so many other ways that I can serve in my uniform and serve outside of it for my community. So that's been the reason why I've stayed, and I've gained so many that's where I met my fiance, my soon-to-be husband. I've met those types of people through my service in the military, which has just been incredible. But I didn't start competing in pageants like you asked until my freshman year at the Air Force Academy. Never thought I would have done something like that before, but my cousin Madeline had competed in pageants, and I thought that it looked like something that could be fun for me because at the Air Force Academy your first year, you're getting yelled at all the time. Yeah. You're never allowed to wear civilian clothes. You don't really ever get to go home. And that coupled with losing my mom the year prior just sucked. And I needed something good and fun for me to do. And so I got into pageants and then realized it was a lot more than just fun, but it was an opportunity for me to learn how to talk about things like the Whitney Marsh Foundation or the military and standing up for people that I care about, and also getting to meet tons of wonderful, passionate women from all across the nation. So it's been a wild ride, and here we are now.
Yeah. Okay. So you lost your mom in 2018. You graduated high school in 2019. You went to the Air Force Academy in 2019.
Yes.
And I have friends that have been to the Naval Academy and Air Force Academy. I've heard that first year is just rough. It's a total culture shock, right? And just like hardcore. So Air Force, high pressure, Miss America, pageantry, high pressure, flying planes, like high pressure, right? How do you handle this pressure, and how do you handle like kind of the stress of these things? Of course you enjoy them, right? But there's also a side of it that's a lot of stress, I'm sure, right? Or maybe
and I think for me, I guess the way that you go about it is you never fear failure. You're never actually going to fail if you choose to learn from the mistakes that you make. And I think that's what makes the high pressure situations really exciting for me, because as long as I come out of it, maybe I don't do well on a test at the Air Force Academy, or maybe I don't win a pageant, or maybe as I'm trying to figure out leadership styles within the Whitney Marsh Foundation the past couple of years, maybe I screw something up there. But the great thing is we always have the opportunity to learn. If you're willing to reflect and to critique yourself and to take criticism from other people, you can always get better. And I think that's what's really helped me in those high stress situations is everything's going to be okay. Nothing's ever that deep, and you're going to be able to get through it if you just learn from it and become better the next time around.
Yeah. That's really good.
That is great. What are some lessons that you've learned as a result of some of those failures? I mean, obviously you're a super successful person. You've succeeded in a lot of ways, but what are some things that you maybe failed at and you learned from, and it pushed you to get better and learn and do something different the next time?
I think one of the big things I've really gotten to see play out this year at the Whitney Marsh Foundation is we've hired volunteers from all across the country this year. We're close to a 20-person team that I have the opportunity to lead. And a big thing that I've figured out is you have to figure out what makes people tick and what people's strengths and weaknesses are. People say that all the time, but you really have to genuinely look, because if you're going to place someone on a specific part of the team and that's not something that, one, they're passionate about, not good.
Yeah.
And two, if that's something that they're not good at, also not good. You need to try to find in the circle of the overlap between those two things to make your team run the best. So it's always constantly for me trying to figure out whenever I'm working with my volunteers of, you know what, maybe they don't like this specific part of the job, so we're going to restructure this for this next year and try to make these jobs more uniform so people are doing what they love and what they're good at. Yeah. But also at the same time, not neglecting those weaknesses, because I want them to be able to have those as opportunities to learn from me and other people on the team. So maybe if they're not good at doing business pitches with people throughout Fort Smith, they can come shadow me or someone else on the team that is really good at it, so they can watch and they can learn. If they want to get better at that public speaking, or maybe it's email communications or social media, there are always so many opportunities to learn, and I want to give that to people. And that's definitely something that it's also been a huge learning opportunity for me this year. And I think my second biggest lesson is to stop caring so much about what other people think of your success in life. You are always going to fall short if you continue to have your meter in life be someone else's version of success. If you're trying to live to make someone else's happy, to live up to someone else's version of happiness, you are never going to be happy in your own life, because you are living to their standard and not yours. That's why there's all of these people that say, I've accomplished everything that I ever thought I could have wanted, and I'm still depressed. I still don't feel fulfilled. And it's because you're chasing after somebody else's dreams and not your own, because you care too much about what other people think instead of finding your true passions and doing what you really love. And until you can do that, you're not going to be able to feel that true fulfillment and success. Success is found when you do something that you love and not because someone else's dreams are telling you to do it.
Yeah. I think social media has changed the landscape with that in particular, right? You're constantly living up to some ideals that from social media posts that you see. What would you tell somebody? I know you are very influential and you have a lot of children or younger folks that look up to you. What advice do you give them? I'm sure you get to talk to them frequently. What advice do you give them about perseverance or about chasing their dreams? Because obviously you've chased a lot of your dreams and seen those come to fulfillment.
I would say there are always probably going to be people that are not going to think that you're going to succeed. And instead of trying to prove them wrong, try to prove yourself right. I have never once tried to go after an achievement or a certain part of my life to prove somebody else wrong, to say, I told you I could do this. It's never about that. It's about showing yourself that you know you have the capabilities to get it done. I mean, I remember whenever I was going for a bunch of different scholarships in college, there were probably people in those committees that voted against me to say Madison shouldn't get this scholarship for whatever reason. I didn't let that stop me. I just said, I'm going to prove to myself, because I know I can do this, to become better the next time, to learn from my mistakes and keep chasing because I care about it. Not because I care what they think, because I personally care about it. And I think that's one of the biggest things that you can do for yourself, because you can be your biggest cheerleader, but you can also be the biggest thing to tear you down if you let yourself get in the way of what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Kind of to piggyback on what Josh was asking, I mean, for young women and girls in particular, like I see you as being such an inspiration because you're Miss America, but you also love science. And you're also like in the Air Force and you wanted to be an astronaut and you've got this, black belt in Taekwondo. And so you have all of these really strong aspects of your life, that come from who you are. How would you encourage young women, young girls to find themselves and to discover outside of social media, outside of what everybody else thinks, outside of maybe any traditional idea of what like a woman or a girl should be, what would you say to them about finding themselves and becoming sure of themselves?
Yeah. I would say, so I struggled with that a lot, definitely throughout college, because like I said, I'd wanted to be an astronaut for like 9 years. And then I started to realize that was not authentic to what I really wanted in my life anymore. And I was so worried about what other people were going to think when I said, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going to go to pilot training for the Air Force. I'm not going to go get my PhD in physics because that's not what I want. I was so afraid that people were going to say, oh, well, Madison's just choosing the easy way out or something. And I was sitting with my fiance in a Chipotle parking lot in Colorado. And he asked me, can you tell me what you would want your life to be if no one on social media would ever know, and the only people that would know what you do in your life is going to be me and you? What would you choose to do? And I think that whenever I had finally started to realize the freeing moment of nobody else's opinion of my life matters. What I do in my personal life, in my family life, my career, my profession, the only thing that really matters is what I want and what I choose. And I think when he had finally said that to me of like, if the world would never know what I did, what would I choose? And it became very clear it would not have been astronaut anymore. It would not have been physics at all. I would have chosen a probably any other career path at that point, because that's just not what I loved. And I think that's something that I think was always in the back of my head growing up, but social media has made it so much harder to keep that positive voice of what I love, because that's why I went into random things. Like, that's why I did Taekwondo, because who cared that I was probably going to be one of the only girls in there? I like Taekwondo. Who cared that I was going to be in less of 30% of women at the Air Force Academy? Because I wanted to be there. And I think I had always known that, but social media makes it so hard because you feel like everyone's always watching you and everyone always cares. And my fiance had also said, he was like, when we go to our academy graduation in 20 years from now, you know what people are probably going to be talking about whenever we go and see our friends? They're probably going to ask about your job for one question, and then the rest of it, I hope, is going to be about our family and our kids that we get to have and where we live and the memories that we've gotten to create as a family, because nothing else matters. And I think that was incredibly important to me and very validating, because it's like, right, who else should care about what I'm doing? And so I think that was really great. And I think now I'm definitely walking away from social media. I have a great app on my phone now called Opal. And instead of just using Apple to kind of lock up your social media apps throughout the day, Opal makes it very difficult for me to go on any form of social media. By the time 8 a.m. hits until I go to bed at night, every time I try to click on a social media app, it puts up a quote basically about how social media and constantly looking at your phone will ruin your life. So, I mean, it is. And if you want to unlock it, you have to go back to Opal. You have to wait 10 seconds. It makes you meditate before you're allowed to unlock these apps. You have to go through a lot of hoops. And I think the first couple of days were hard because it was such a gut reaction for me to be like, I gotta open up Instagram. And now it's
detox almost.
Exactly.
I don't think we realize how reliant and addicted we are until we do something like this, and then we're like, oh snap, it's only been 10 seconds. And I'm like,
and I think that's been such a good learning lesson for me, because I'm like, now when I wake up in the morning, instead of immediately going on my phone, I give myself that opportunity to journal, to read, or to just sit in silence. And I think that has been recentering my life and my brain instead of having those constant breaks of checking my phone. Now I get to just live more so in the moment and live more for me and less for whatever in the world is happening on Instagram or Facebook or whatever other stupid social media app is out there today.
No, I think that's so good. I was watching a podcast with a psychologist and she was talking about the impact of social media in particular on young women. And how, self-confidence is developed inwardly, right? But now so many girls are looking to social media to see what's cool. And instead of developing their self-confidence from within, it's becoming developed from external means like social media and trends.
Absolutely.
And they end up not knowing what they like or what they want, or there's a lot of confusion about that. And so I think it's so great to see someone like Miss America, Madison Marsh here saying like, no, know what you want, find out what you like, do it, put the phone down, like get off Facebook. I think that's such a powerful message.
So are you still processing what you want to do next?
Yeah. What's next?
So I go back to Harvard in January. So I have a year and a half left in my program. That was a big change that I had made from the academy because I decided no more physics. I really want to focus on trying to make this pancreatic cancer work into a lifestyle for me while I'm still in the Air Force in my free time and post-military life of doing that full time. So I'm getting my degree in public policy and I focus in healthcare specifically for cancer policy. And then after that, I'll get reassigned into a different Air Force job. I don't know what it's going to be yet. My fiance is going through pilot training right now for the Air Force. And so we're waiting to see what ends up happening with what plane he ends up dropping so we can ensure that no matter where we go, we're going to get to live together. Because I think that's also been a big learning moment for me this past year is I've gotten to go to a lot of cool places, but nothing matters unless you have someone to share it with at the end of the day, to me. There's no job in the world that is cool enough if I come home to an empty house every night. It just doesn't matter to me. And I think that was a big thing I had realized about that the astronaut path of I really want to be there fully for my family all of the time. I want to be able to raise my kids in the way that my mom got to raise me in Fort Smith with my dad. And so we're excited to see where that's going to take us. But honestly, I know as long as we get to live together, I'm not too worried about what job I'm going to have or whatever else happens in the world. So
that's great.
So Miss America's wrapping up. How has your experience been? What have been the highlights of being Miss America 2024?
I love getting to meet all the people, and I've also gotten to go to some pretty crazy places I probably otherwise would not have. I think the most meaningful trip that I went on this entire year is the Air Force took me to Normandy for the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And last year, right after we graduated from the Air Force Academy, Walker, my now fiance, and I went over to France on one of our stops whenever we were going through Europe. And that was one of the first things we went and saw as new officers was looking at the American cemetery and all of the people that had given so much. And I remember there were these two headstones, and it was a father and son that had only died a few days apart in France during World War II. And it just getting to see that again as Miss America and actually getting to see those veterans cross the stage to be thanked, those people changed the course of not only America, but of the world. And it just stands as a testament of how much we can accomplish and how much good we can bring to other people when we band together as a country and when we band together with our allies. And I think that's always going to stick with me because no matter how much craziness is going on in the world, we all bleed the same. We need to treat each other with more kindness and stick up with one another because the people beside you and the goodness that you can bring in the world is what matters.
Yeah.
Not all the other frivolous things that we make up every day and say matter.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm also curious to know, I mean, you come back to Fort Smith fairly frequently. You grew up here, right? So you just know it really well. How does it feel coming back here? What are changes that you've noticed?
I think some of the new buildings that have gone up, like when I drive past Mercy, because that's where my dad works.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I only come here maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and every time there's something new that's getting built. But I think it's really cool because that means that our town is expanding. I know we've got the fighter jets coming in. I think that's really, really cool for Fort Smith. But the things that stay the same are the people. Every single time that I get to come back, all of the people that will just band around you will show up for you. The kindness that you see. I mean, whenever I would run up in my neighborhood, there was this one time, I now have a bad back, and so I couldn't finish my run, and this very nice older lady was like, "Would you like me to drive you home?" And this is probably one of the only places in the United States where I would have gotten in a stranger's car and been like, yes, you can drive me home. When I tell people that story, they were like, "I'm not worried you're going to get kidnapped." And I was like, no, it's Fort Smith, Arkansas. I'm not worried. This girl probably was friends with my mom or one of my aunts or something. So I was like, we're cool.
I was talking to the police chief last night. I was like, this is the safest place I have ever lived. I don't worry about walking around anywhere in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And you cannot say that with most places in America.
No, it's true. I mean, one time I dropped my wallet. I was looking, I was like, where's my wallet? And then I go out to my car. I'm like, maybe I left it in the car. It was on the parking lot, on the ground. And it had been there for hours.
Yeah.
And it was still there. Yeah. I mean, where else?
Exactly.
Nowhere.
Nowhere else.
Nowhere. That wallet would have been gone. So I was like, thank you, Fort Smith.
So I'm sure you've done a lot of podcasts like these, a lot of interviews. What have been some of the most exciting things or some of the funniest things that have happened during some of these interviews?
I feel like maybe not necessarily in the interviews, but when I meet people, sometimes people forget that it's I'm still Madison Marsh. Most importantly, Miss America, all of that's going to go away. All of the titles in the world are going to go away. And I'm just a human like everybody else. And sometimes people just forget that because you have the sash on or something. They say some crazy things to you. I've been followed into the bathroom at the Super Bowl and people were waiting outside knocking saying, "Is Miss America in there?" And I was like, oh, well, I can't lie clearly because my gown is showing through the bottoms of the stall. And I just wanted to come in here so I could just chill for a moment. So there have been some weird things like that where people just forget to just act cool and everyone's the same.
Yeah. So a little moment there. You were at the Super Bowl? Is that what you said? Okay.
Yes.
That was like a small little tidbit out of the whole, she was at the Super Bowl. That's pretty cool. What other notable big events have you been at or been able to attend this year?
Geez. The Super Bowl was definitely one of the biggest. I went to the first 4 game in Dayton, Ohio. So that was pretty cool. I've been sent over to England this year for the Royal International Air Tattoo, which is their big air show. That was awesome. I mean, I got to meet a lot of cool people, got to meet some people that worked at Boeing. Oh my gosh, I feel like everything's running together this year.
I can only imagine.
They sent me to Dubai for a few days. So nice. I got to meet with people at the U.S. Embassy. One of the cool things is they brought me to their hospital there. And you know what their hospital's called? The American Hospital. Dubai they have a lot of money out there, and they could have brought in any sort of hospital from anywhere in the world. And instead of choosing any other country, it was the American Hospital. Mm-hmm. Because no matter what people say, we are the gold standard for healthcare and the gold standard for what we can bring for research initiatives to patients. Yeah. All of the ways that we are diagnosing patients, they are using it on a completely different side of the world. Mm-hmm. And I think that was pretty incredible to get to see. All the way over in Dubai, I got to be walking through the American hospital where we had some American physicians that had literally moved from the U.S. to be able to provide healthcare to people all the way out there. So that was very shocking. I didn't know that had existed, but very cool nonetheless.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the pageant. I'm curious. Did you get close to any of the other women in the pageant? Have you kept in touch with them? Do you have any stories about the pageant itself or leading up to it or afterwards? Yeah. I've never been in pageants before.
Neither have I.
And so I'm just like, ooh, tell me.
So all of us are very close. We still have a group chat that we text in just about every day. I have, I think, 5 or 6 of my girlfriends literally flying out for Whitney's race this upcoming weekend. And so that means a lot to get to see people literally taking time off of their jobs and paying to fly all the way across the country to Fort Smith, Arkansas, a town that they've never been to, probably would not have come to in their life just because they're not from around Arkansas, and they're coming all the way here to come celebrate with our town.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited because people, maybe they have never put Arkansas as one of their places to come visit ever, but now they're going to get to see all of the wonderful parts of our town that I love, and the reason why I keep coming back, and the reason why my fiance and I want to move back and settle our family down in this state. So I'm excited for that. But the whole Miss America experience, I mean, our competition, 10 days long, you show up, you are up, I mean, very early. Every single day. Like, I think you're starting, at least for me, a lot of my pageants, you're in hair and makeup maybe at 4 or 5 in the morning.
Oh my goodness. No
which is
living
terrible.
creature should be awake.
I know. I sit in a chair like this. I've had the same hair and makeup artist since I started in pageants. And I'm like, Amanda, please don't do it to me. Don't send me the schedule. I know you're about to with a 4 a.m. wake up call. I'm not showing up.
Yeah.
But you basically do that. And then, the first couple of days you have your interviews. Our interviews are 10 minutes long each. We got to go to, we went, what's it called? It's not Disney World. It's the other one.
Oh, Epcot? No.
Disneyland? Universal Studios.
Universal Studios.
Yeah.
So they took us to Universal Studios, and y'all know we live in Tornado Valley here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So while we were in Florida last year, is it a tornado warning that's not as bad?
I think it's when
watch is not as bad.
Watch is not as bad. Okay, so a tornado watch starts going off as we're in the park. People are texting saying, everyone needs to get back on the boats right now and come back to the hotel. This is an emergency. And I'm with all my girlfriends, and I was like, guys, please.
Yeah.
My dad, we literally sit outside while we're watching the tornado start to turn. My dad's flipping burgers. And then when the sirens go off, then it's time for us to go in the safe room. We chill out in there. Okay. And I was like, guys, we do not need to leave. So we're hanging out at
Tornado
Universal.
watch means you're watching for the tornado.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Well, basically.
Yeah.
So we were walking through the park, and they start to shut down all of the rides, and because they don't allow any of the roller coasters to go off, of course.
Yeah,
There's a tornado warning. But the only one that was open was like the in-person experience. So it was like the Jurassic Park, the dinosaurs, the ones that jump out at you. So I was like, let's just go do this. Like, the warning's going to pass, and we're going to get to go back on the rides, everybody.
Yeah.
So I keep everyone out there with me. Then it ends up turning into like a real storm, and I was like, oh, okay, we can go back. But I thought it was hilarious because everyone, as soon as like the wind started to come in and it started to rain, everyone was like, we have to go inside now. And I was like, guys,
this is the best part.
Yeah.
I'm like, exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, we need a grill, a burger, and we like to make some artichokes. With us.
Yeah.
We flip them, wait outside, and we can go in whenever it starts to work. So
I love that. That's so great. So you've got some friends coming in town.
yes.
Are you going to show them around? Like, are you going to take them around town, show them some certain parts of Fort Smith?
So they are coming. I'm basically having to work the entire weekend from morning until night. So I told them if they want to come volunteer at the event, they can. So they can come meet our friends and our people. And if not, I've sent them my list of restaurants that I love to go to.
Tell us which ones.
So,
I mean, we know Blue Ember, right?
I told them La Huerta, of course. Told them a good old Steven special's not going to hurt him. I love, Jim's Razorback Pizza.
Yeah.
So good. Gino's.
Yeah.
I love a good Gino's Sprite.
do
That's what I'm going to go
too.
get after this interview, actually.
Nice.
And then Blue Ember, I love. Actually, for our cocktail hour that we're doing for our big sponsors and donors this weekend, we're having someone make Pink Flamingo barbecue.
Oh, wow.
Which, that's what I grew up with.
Okay, no, tell me. Explain.
So Ralph's
like, I'm
Pink
from
Flamingo.
Memphis, and then I spent 10 years in Texas. So
Pink Flamingo
What
was
is
like
this
the OG
barbecue?
barbecue and Fort Smith.
Oh, so it's a restaurant.
It
Like a
was.
place.
It's no longer there anymore. So
But
this is a
We
special.
have
Special.
an inn. We have an inn. And that's why I was like, okay, the cheesy potatoes.
Yeah.
Their baked cobblers. The pulled
Baked
pork.
cobblers.
It was
Stop.
awesome.
Baked cobbler is my jam.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
I eat just about anywhere here. And I always tell them I love, what is it? Dough's. We've got, what's the one that's right here?
21
West End, yeah.
Love 21. I mean, we do have a growing population of all these different restaurants in town. And I really love that because I can go just about anywhere and get just about any food that I could think of.
It's true. It's true. Like for a town our size, I feel like we have a really diverse food scene.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like
Vietnamese
global
food.
Uncorked.
Yeah.
My dad loves Uncorked.
It's
Uncorked's amazing.
Yeah. And gotta love Rolando's and AJ's.
I love Rolando's. Okay, now I'm craving that too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just right down there.
Yeah.
And this, to me, the scenery too in Rolando's is great with the artwork and the
very vibrant.
The lights.
Yeah.
Love that.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned coming back, raising your family here. What would you say to somebody who's maybe considering Fort Smith, considering moving here, relocating, and possibly starting a family here? What would you say to kind of inspire them or kind of coax them to come to Fort Smith?
Yeah. I would say a big thing for me and my fiance is I do not like big cities. I have traveled to a lot of the big cities all across the U.S., and I don't like living on top of people. I don't want to be able to see into your window. Mm-hmm. I don't want to have to deal with the crazy prices. I mean, I'm going back to live in Cambridge and basically in Boston for the next year and a half, and that is one of the most expensive places to rent or own in the country. And that compared to Fort Smith, my brother, I'm one of 5 siblings. So I've got 2 older brothers, an older sister, me, and my little sister. My oldest brother, Nick, lived in DC for a long time. Ended up these past couple of months, decided to come back to Fort Smith for a while. And just hearing him talk about what they're able to get with their rent, which is literally half as much as mine in Boston, which I lived literally under the stairs in a Harry Potter room. And they have a full house and like a backyard. And I'm like, what sorcery is going on here? So I just think that aspect for me, getting to have more affordable living is very, very important to me and my family. The land out here, my big dream is whenever we come back, I want to buy a huge plot of land that my whole family can just go make houses on, and we'll get to ride little dirt bikes over to each other's house for Sunday dinners and get to have that close environment. Because I like the closeness, especially at Southside. And I'm sure this goes for Northside too. Small classrooms to me really do make a world of a difference. And I was lucky that I got to have that for high school and for college, because whenever you have those classrooms that are less than 20 students, hopefully maybe 10 to 15 range, you get so much of a closer connection with your teachers, which enables you to go get more help.
Oh, yeah.
If you need it, to have that one-on-one time, to actually really get to know your classmates. And when you start to get into those big classrooms, you're kind of losing that face-to-face connection and really that connection to the work that you're doing with that professor or that teacher. So that was that's an incredible piece for me, because you take that for granted. And then I got to move to the Air Force Academy where my classes remained that small, whereas a lot of my friends were getting taught in classrooms that were 200, 300 people large. And that's crazy. You don't get to have that same connection like you would have with your teachers here in Fort Smith. And like I said earlier, that nurturing environment, I mean, take it from my fiance who lived out on the East Coast, and he said he's never ever seen teachers interact with their students like they do here. And he was like, I really do love to see that we would know that our kids are going to be cared for. And there are just so many different opportunities in a town like that where you have the ability to grow and really get to know people and have a genuine connection.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, it has been really a pleasure to just talk with you and get to know you. And Fort Smith is just really proud of you.
Thank you.
You're really, you are, a source of pride for us as a city. So
thank you.
We're very proud of you, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say I'm sure your mom would be so proud of you and what you've done and how you're battling against pancreatic cancer. So thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, not just as Miss America, but all the work that you're doing towards pancreatic cancer research and finding a cure.
Well, thank you. I'm proud to be from Fort Smith. I tell people that all the time. So